The day was it's a beautiful day on the East Coast. I mean, you walk outside, it's a September day. It's kind of, it's not hot. It's fairly cool. There wasn't a cloud in the sky. It was just gorgeous. And I got in the car about 8:30, 8:20 to go over to Capitol Hill. I'd been nominated to be the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. The chairman was on his way to a NATO meeting, so he's over the North Atlantic somewhere. And made my way over to the Hill. I'm supposed to be meeting with a senator, because as you get ready for these, your confirmation hearings, you try to meet with all the committee members to make sure there's not any issues that you could solve maybe in the office, as opposed to when the lights are on you and the cameras are rolling. And when we got into his office, it's about quarter till 10 till, it's about 10 till 9, the first tower had been hit. And I'm thinking, and the newscast, they didn't know what had happened. They just said an aircraft hit one of the World Trade Center towers. And I'm thinking to myself, it's a beautiful day. We're not that far from New York. The weather's got to be gorgeous up there. How can some idiot take an airplane and hit a big building? Was my initial thought. And then we went into the meeting, and as we're getting ready to start the meeting, the assistant runs in from the outer office, says the second tower has been hit. And at that point, we knew something was up. So we said the meeting's over, walked out to his outer office. I had a call from Ed Eberhard. Ed and I were Air Force 4 stars together. He had taken over from me in Colorado Springs as the commander of North American Aerospace Defense Command, which defends the country from missiles and air attack. That was one of their missions. He had several other hats, but that was the important one this day. And he's on the phone. He says, "Hey, Dick, we've got a lot of commercial aircraft in the system, and we can't tell who are the friendlies and which ones might have been hijacked. It's very confusing. I have the authority, so I'm not asking your permission, Dick, but I'm going to land them all, and we'll sort it out once they're on the ground. We're going to ask everybody to land." And if you were flying that day, people will remember they didn't make it to their destination. Most likely, they made it to some other place where they had to find a rental car or wait a day or two or three to continue their journey. But that's what he did. And I said, "That sounds fine to me." And I said, so I'm getting the car. I called my executive assistant, Matt Klima, who's just been confirmed, I think yesterday, sworn in as our new ambassador to Turkmenistan. So Army Colonel, retired, senior executive service civilian in the State Department, now an ambassador to Turkmenistan. But he's on the phone, and I said, "Is the National Military Command Center up and running?" Oh, sorry. We come across the bridge after leaving Capitol Hill. I got ahead of myself, and there was the Pentagon. We heard the Pentagon had been struck. Come across the 14th Street Bridge, and you can look down on the Pentagon in the lowlands down there in the swamp where it was built, and it's there's flames coming out, and there's smoke, black smoke, and it was almost to the point where I thought, this is a dream. This just doesn't happen in the United States of America. So I actually did pinch myself, said, "My way, come on," and this was not a dream. Called Matt. I said, "Is the National Military Command Center open?" He said, "It is, but we're evacuating the Pentagon." So we pulled up in front of the Pentagon river entrance, and we had to fight our way in because everybody's been told to evacuate. So they're all leaving. My office staff, in part of the continuity of government plan, helicopters descend when we're under attack. They descend. Some staffs go to an undisclosed location. Some stay in place. My whole staff was supposed to go to the end, so they all left. The only guy left was Matt Klima. He decided to stay, which thank goodness he did. And we go into the National Military Command Center, and we're starting to figure out what's happening. And I said, "Where's the Secretary of Defense? We're supposed to sit here and kind of do this." He said, "Well, he's out doing triage for the people that were hurt when the American Airlines aircraft hit the building." And so I said, "Somebody's got to go get him." He'd figured that out. He was out there because his first instinct was, "We don't know what happened, but I'm going to go out and help." He heard the thud. It was on the opposite side of the building. There was always this thought that they wouldn't wanted to hit the side of the building that he would have been on, and they circled and hit the other side, anyway, so we're in there. He finally shows up, and the rest of the day was just trying to figure out what was fact and what was fiction. We heard all sorts of, the first one was, there's been a bomb go off over by the State Department. So we ran that to ground. No, that's not true. The White House, the president, everybody knows, was in Florida, and then they started moving him around in the air. So if he was a target, he would be safe. And we had to kind of sort all this out. We were getting all kinds of directions from the National Security Council and White House staff. And Secretary Rumsfeld finally had to call the Vice President Cheney, and say, we'll take any order from the president or from you that you say the president gave you, but the rest of your staff, if they're going to tell us the term left, go right, do this, do that, we're not going to do that because they're not in the chain of command. And thank you very much, but we're getting a lot of input. Enough. And then the rest of the day, we just worked through trying to make our forces safe around the world, because we didn't know if this was a worldwide plot. We just didn't know. We knew, CIA knew very quickly from video at the airport that this was Al Qaeda. I mean, they knew that. They knew they were, identified them. But beyond that, we didn't know where other attacks. So we tried to button down, protect ourselves, protect our allies, think about next steps. And then that night, and we had to evacuate that command center because the Pentagon was on fire, and eventually the smoke got to the point where the carbon dioxide level was too high, and then we had to leave, go to another. So that night, Senator Levin, Senator Warner came to the Pentagon. They wanted to have the secretary, and the chairman now had returned. He turned his airplane around over the North Atlantic and somehow talked his way back into our airspace, because we're not letting anybody come into U.S. airspace. Nobody. Somehow he talked his way in. Hugh Shelton, General Shelton, he came in, and they wanted to have the SecDef, the chairman, and the two ranking and the chairman of the Senate Armed Services Committee have a press conference to say the Pentagon is open for business, kind of reassure people. And so my role was pretty much done at that point. I went to the press conference, sat in the back just to watch and hear the questions. And as I was getting ready to leave and go home that night, a couple things really made an impression on me. One is I went in my little closet to get my uniform, my suit coat, my uniform coat, and or get my jacket, probably more likely, and leave my uniform coat there. And the closet smelled like smoke. I said, this is not good. I better take it home and get it cleaned. And then I made the decision to leave it there, because this has been a disastrous day. And I want that smoke to remind me of what this day was like. So I left it there. On the way home, we lived at Fort Myer, which is about a mile away as a crow flies. And I remember turning around, looking at the Pentagon and seeing still flames, because the roof was these old wood timbers, and they caught fire, and it was hard it burned for a while. And there was always smoke for a couple of days coming out, wisping out of that. So you could see kind of fire and smoke, not as bad as it was when it was first hit. And then you could hear fighter jets, and fighter jets sound a lot different than commercial aircraft. And they were patrolling the skies over Washington, D.C. And I'm thinking, what kind of world are we living in here where we have fighter jets? Nobody else is flying. I mean, there's nobody flying in and out of National Airport or any of those. It was just fighter jets up there patrolling the skies in case there was going to be another attack. And that was my day of 9/11. And met Mary Jo, who'd my wife, who had been at Fort Myer, like I said, a mile away. And she knew something happened because she heard the glass in the windows rattled. She turned on TV or had it on, figured out real quickly the Pentagon been struck. Fortunately, my executive assistant, now Ambassador Klimow, had the presence of mind to call Mary Jo and say, we're all okay. That's not how she called the office and said, we're all okay. Because I didn't think about calling my wife till about 2 that afternoon. And this all happened in the morning, right? So if she'd have been relying on me to say I was safe, I flunked. But fortunately, she figured it out. So